G'day guys, and welcome to a brand new build video. Today I'm going to be showing you my Arch-Demon Infernalist. This build is going to be spreading fire everywhere while looking absolutely sick in the process. First, I do want to go over the pros and cons so you know what you're getting yourself into right on the get-go. Pros, we have insane damage, and that damage only increases even further, as you can see on screen right now, as our demon flames increase. We get a dog. Who doesn't like a dog? Sexy demon form. Big W. We can spread fire everywhere. This build is about covering your screen in so much fire that their enemy has absolutely nowhere to run. Now the cons. The cons are big. Gearing is very difficult. The way demon form works with the demon flames, you get a degen. As you can see right now, my health is dropping. At a certain stack, you will no longer be able to maintain the degeneration effect of your life pool, and it will just drop to 0 and you'll go out of demon form, losing all that power. To counteract this, we have to get specific gear. One of them being a unique item, and the others being very high rolls of life regeneration on almost every piece of gear. This can be very difficult and can be time consuming and possibly expensive, depending on how high you want to scale this. Personally, I think I've spent maybe 25 exalts on the build so far. I am level 75, and that was more than enough to get me to the point I am now. Next is follow on from the previous. Obviously, it is not solo self-found friendly. You could do it in solo self-found, but you really need this unique item, and if that doesn't drop for you, you can't really do it. Next is we don't get any bonuses from our main hand or our offhand while we are in demon form. Obviously, it's good to have them while we are outside of demon form, but they do not apply when we are in. That means if we are carrying a shield like which here is, that adds energy, shield, and a resistance, they do not apply in demon form at all. So that can be very difficult as well to gear for, because you have one less slot you can rely on to give you resistances. Next is the leveling process. If you want to min-max, you absolutely cannot pick up a quest item in the manor in Act 1. There is a boss there that comes out of a stone altar or a stone statue that breathes fire. He will drop an item in both normal and cruel. Those items will increase your HP by 20 on the first one and your percentage HP by 8 on the second one. We don't want this because the degen acts on a percentage basis, which means the lower our HP, the lower the degen. I think I've covered all the cons. I believe I'm missing something. I'm forgetting something. If I remember, I will say so in the duration of the video. Let's start with going over the skills first of all, because that is that's how we play the game. Demon form. This is the main focus of the build. Shapeshift into a demon, vastly boosting the power of your spells. You gain Demon Flame every second you remain in demon form, causing your life to be lost at an ever-increasing rate. Revert to human form if you reach 1 life. Use a skill that isn't a spell or reactivate this skill. So currently at a level 17, so this will scale with your character level. It will be the highest level gem possible for your character level. So at the moment, for my character level, I have a 23% increased cast speed while in demon form, plus 6 to level of all spell skills while in demon form, and we deal 16% increased spell damage per demon flame. That is insane, and it can scale incredibly quickly. That's the button I was after. As we're seeing here, if you notice the DPS numbers and the demon flame, our DPS will start going up very quickly. Now we can currently get, with my current gear, I can get up to just over 100 stacks before I have to change back to human, and then we can change back into demon straight away and start building those stacks again. And that is because of the gear I have. We will go over the gear in the gear section, and it will hopefully be very detailed. So that's the gist of the demon form. Because of the degen is a percentage. Why is that not hovering? Day. Okay. Because the degen is a percentage base, we want to make sure that our health is incredibly low. So I'm currently sitting at 453 or 457 health. And that will slowly go down once we've hit a certain threshold. But I can also maintain that with life on kill. And as you can see, our damage is very, very, very high at these levels, making killing even easier, which allows us to proc the damage on kill, which we'll get to a little bit later. Now I have this linked to Ingenuity and Second Wind. The reason that is pretty much everything else doesn't really work with the demon form. I have yet to find a gem that affects it apart from these two that just decrease the cooldown. If any of you find any gems that may actually affect it, please do let me know. I would be very curious. So this is how we ramp our damage. We cycle into our demon form at the start of a map, and then once we've gotten to around 100 flames and we're struggling to maintain our health while using potions and killing things, we then just go ahead and turn it off. And usually by that point we have another stack ready to go, and we just pop it again, and boom, we're back at the ramping level, ramping up every second we are in demon form. Next, we're going to cover our lovely Doggo. This dog allows us to completely ignore 20% of damage dealt. Let me read this. Minions ignite enemies within a radius of 1.5 meters as though dealt by fire damage equal to 20% of the minion's maximum life. Also, the Hound takes a portion of damage from hits for you. Now, I believe that is 20%. I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure it's 20%. I'm like 90% sure it's 20%. So, we are essentially taking less damage while we have our dog out. And because we have our dog out, we're not a minion build, we want to make use of its presence. It also does the ignite damage, and because it ignites, we can throw on fire exposure. But its skill inflicts fire exposure for 8 seconds on igniting an enemy. That means wherever our doggo goes, the enemy is going to have fire exposure on it, which is incredible for our fire damage. Then I went ahead and just stacked as many skills to keep him alive as long as possible to keep that fire exposure going. We have Meat Shield that increases its max HP by 50%. We have Elemental Army that increases its resistances by 30%. And we have Last Grasp. So when our minion dies or our doggo dies, he will stay alive for an extra 4 seconds, which does actually start the respawn countdown. So essentially the respawn countdown is 4 seconds less because he will be alive for 4 seconds after he's technically dead. Now there is a bug currently with Last Grasp that the fire exposure doesn't work while he's classed as technically dead, but he is still doing ignite damage to the enemies. Next, we have our bread and butter fireball. This projectile deals large amounts of fire damage and then explodes into little firebolts. 8 additional projectiles, that's basically a normal cast. It will explode into more little projectiles all around the place. We have that linked to Scattershot, which adds an additional 2 projectiles. And then we followed that up with Unleash. The way Unleash works is it will generate seals. As you can see, a number there. That is 2 casts we can use where it will give us a duplicate of the fireball. I don't know why I clicked that. As you can see, it's shooting more fireballs than possible while we have these stacks, but when we don't, they don't shoot that many. Now you may have seen a little fire circle going around there. That is because of this magical support here, Wild Shards. Border skills have a 20% chance to fire 8 additional projectiles in a circle. That means it will be 8 additional fireballs on top of the 3 fireballs we're already firing, and each one of those fireballs explodes into 8 separate fire bolts. As you can see, this can escalate incredibly quickly when you're in a close quarters. And it looks absolutely gorgeous. For the 5th slot, I popped in Controlled Destruction. We are not using crit on this build. This is pure elemental damage. So I went ahead and grabbed Controlled Destruction for a 30% more damage with hits and ailments. Over here we have Ember Fuselage. This is a very high damage ability that I only use for tanky rares or tanky boss mobs. Otherwise, I just don't use it at all. Basically, we charge up a group of fuselages and they just automatically fire after a short amount of time. I have linked that with fast forward to decrease the time before they fire. I have also linked that with considered casting, which now, as of the latest patch, has 40% more damage with spell hits and 15 less cast speed. But we've counteracted that with Arcane Tempo, which increases cast speed by 25%. So we basically got a 10% faster cast speed. Over here I have Flammability. I usually pop this down in a choke point because we are linking it with Cursed Ground. So instead of it being a cast cursed, it just turns into a ground feature that will remain there for a couple of seconds, and anything that touches it will get the Flammability curse applied. Very good in small areas, and very good if like completely cutting off half of an arena with a curse. I do find it more useful than just casting it normally. And then I have that link to Magnifying Effect, which increases the effect of the area of the curse, which is beautiful. Now, this is where the bulk of our damage comes from. Archmage. Non-channeling spells gain 6% of their damage as extra lightning damage for each 100 maximum mana you have. We want to be stacking mana as much as possible to get use out of that spell gain percentage. The downside is that every one of our costs costs an additional % of our maximum mana. At level 16, it is 5.25%, which is quite a bit, but we've managed to get it to a point where we don't really have to worry about mana too much. That is it. Those are the skills. It's very straightforward. We are mainly just using the fireballs and popping down a curse whenever. And if we happen to come up against something really, really tough, we'll pop a lot of fuselages and keep shooting fireballs until they're dead. While, of course, rotating our demon form in and out. Now, onto the passive skill tree. We're going to cover the ascendancies first. Let's just zoom on in here. The first ascendancy you're going to want to get very early is your Loyal Hellhound, because this allows us to get that fire exposure and decrease of incoming damage because he absorbs it. This is incredible for leveling and incredible for endgame, so it's just great to grab as soon as possible. Next, we want to get Demon Form. Now, most likely by the time we get Demon Form, we may not be able to utilize it very well because this is a very much a end game build. We build up to the demon in the end game. Next, we want to grab Altered Flesh. This is essentially just an additional defensive layer. 20% of cold lightning damage is taken as fire damage. So as long as we have a decent amount of fire damage, well, resistances, which we should, then a lot of cold and lightning won't really cause us a whole lot of issues. Next is the 20% of physical damage taken as chaos damage. Now we actually get chaos damage with the chosen unique, the required unique for this build. So we already have a good amount of chaos damage resistance. And we can also obviously pick some up with gear along as we go. But we don't have any armor. So that 20% of physical damage taken as chaos is just absolutely incredible. We will then move on to Bite Hand, which reserves 25% of our life to increase our energy shield by 1 for every 8 life used. Now that's not going to be a whole lot because we don't have a whole lot of life. But it is something and it's better than nothing. You do have options of going for extra mana, which will increase our overall damage, but I feel having more defenses is more important because we get our damage from the demon form. We already have damage covered. Now I'm going to go over the tree as you would level it. So starting from level 1 all the way until level 75. We will start on the shield tree. Moving on up, we'll grab pure energy, dampening shields, and mana blessing. We're going to get a lot of use out of this mana blessing later on in the build, but while we're here, we may as well utilize it and help our mana issues early on. We are then going to want to take the straight path all the way to the top of the tree, and we want to grab cremation first, and then volcanic skin. Now you could do volcanic skin first and cremation second, but usually I go for the exposure and penetration to allow me to deal more damage and kill things faster. Obviously this does increase your damage, but the main thing here is that plus 20 to fire resistances, which is one of the few places on the tree where you can get so much resistances from. Absolutely great node to grab. Then we are going to go and fill up some of our defenses. So we're going to go back down here and grab the Illuminated Crown, which increases the energy shield from our helmet by 70%, which is absolutely insane. Then we have Heavy Buffer, which is another 40% increase. But the biggest thing here is actually the 10% reduced maximum life. As we discussed earlier, the Demon Flame scales off a percentage of your maximum life. Less life, less degen, more regen, longer demon uptime. Moving back down here, we are going to grab the energy shield delay circle to allow us to not only increase our intellect, which adds to our mana, but also allows a little bit extra recharge speed on our shield. So we're not waiting there for ages for it to pop. Then we want to go ahead and grab these nodes here all the way up to exploit the elements, which is 24% increased damage with hits against enemies that are affected by elemental ailments, because we are going to be using a lot of fire at this point, well, throughout the entire build. We are going to be proccing Ignite, as well as our dog will automatically ignite anything that's around. So we will almost always get benefits from these nodes. Now, at this point in the leveling, you're going to start noticing you're getting stunned. So we want to mitigate that best we can. We want to head over here to asceticism. I cannot pronounce that. I am sorry. Stun threshold is based off 30% of your energy shield instead of life. For those who don't know, it's your stun resistance base is always based on your life. This changes that, so it will be based on your energy shield, which is 100% required for this. Otherwise, we're going to be stunned so much because of our life is so little. Next, we're going to go up here, gain 20% of your maximum energy shield as additional stun threshold and 20% increased stun threshold while on full life. Majority of the time, we're going to be on full life. That's it. 20% extra stun threshold is amazing. Over here, we want to go grab Echoing Flames. That is a 30% increased elemental damage if you ignited an enemy recently. We would have not ignited an enemy recently. Then we are going to go down and grab Insightfulness. That will allow us to get even more intellect, which means more mana, and we'll get even more energy shield. Beautiful stuff. By this point in time, you would have had access to Archmage. That means we want to start grabbing some lightning nodes. So while we're over here, we might as well go ahead and grab the Echoing Thunder node, which is 30% increased elemental damage if you socked an enemy recently. And Alternating Current, again, even more regeneration if we shocked an enemy recently. And it increases the magnitude of a shock, which means the enemy takes more damage. Now, you may have noticed that we do have dual sockets here and here. You're going to want to grab anything that increases chance to shock and anything increases chance to ignite. We want the 20% on both of those. And then we don't have to worry about ignite or shock chance at all. 20% is more than enough with the amount of projectiles we're firing. We're going to want to go over here and grab Arcane Intensity, which is 3% increased spell damage per 100 maximum mana. Kind of goes hand in hand with our Archmage. It just boosts that up to being even more overall damage depending on our mana. And of course, along the way, we went ahead and grabbed increased maximum mana, which is, it's big. It's big. Now we want to fill out our electrical resistances because now we're doing a lot of electrical damage along with our fire damage. We want to go ahead and grab electric amplification first because that gives us penetration and increased exposure, which is nice. But basically we penetrate a lot of lightning resistance, which is absolutely incredible. Over here, we just essentially increase our overall lightning damage, which is 2% increased lightning damage per 10 intellect. And we have a lot of intellect, so that is a massive boost in damage just from one node. Okay, now we're pretty much in endgame. After all of that, we're in the endgame. We want to make sure our life regeneration is happening quickly. So we're going to take our way down and grab full recovery, which grants us a 15% increased life regeneration rate, as well as some more mana regeneration, which is very important for us. And then down here, we grab the Devoted Protector. Now, I don't really need anything in this circle. It's literally just on the way to the node we need. which is 20% increased life regeneration rate and 5% of damage taken recouped as life. The 5% is handy. We don't really see it. Like it's obviously working in the background for us, but what we're really here for is the 20% increased life regeneration rate. So that is now a 35% increased life regeneration rate, which stacks onto our life regeneration on our gear and scales quite well. That is the build for level 75. As you can see, we are going to be focusing on first a lot of fire damage, and then we're going to add lightning damage to that afterwards. Let's have a look at the gear. The gear is the most important part of this build. The most important thing, and the thing that's going to be the hardest to scale and your limiting factor. First, you need to acquire a ghost ray. The reason for this is the 50% of maximum life converted to energy shield. Now, if you have a look, if we take that off, boom, we have 913 life and only 2,000 shield. That means we're going to be taking a lot more damage from our Demon Flame. We pop that bad boy back on, boom, we have a lot more health and very little life because we are now 50% less. And that Demon Flame percentage will scale off our maximum life. The Chaos Resistance Energy Shield are absolutely amazing, but try and purchase one with resistances on it. That'll make getting resistances for this build a lot easier. I managed to snag myself a 36 fire resistance corrupted, and it is, I believe it was 1 exalt. So pretty easy. Now, moving on to the other pieces of gear, as you can see, we are just stacking mana. Lots of mana. As much life regeneration as we can possibly get, and a lot of resistances. Now, in order of priority, we want resistances so we don't die in endgame. Life regeneration to increase the uptime of our demon form. And mana to increase our damage output, because a lot of our stuff scales off mana. Over on our boots, we are doing the same thing here. Don't have the best rolls. I can obviously, my gear isn't amazing. As I said, did I say? I spent around 25 exalts on the build itself. So it is doable around that range. So I managed to get a piece with movement speed, which is great. But the main thing here is the life regeneration, another 20 flat life regeneration. We notice we're not going for percentage life regeneration, we're going for flat, because the percentages really do not help us. Up here on our ring, unfortunately we didn't manage to get life regeneration on this because we are trying to cap our resistances. It is kind of difficult, but we did manage to get a ring with a lot of mana and a increased fire damage roll, which will of course increase our overall DPS. Over up on our necklace, we want to get a +1 to level of all spell skills. Very good, because this is the only +1 that we can acquire, as far as I'm aware, that doesn't get unequipped when we go to demon form. We also of course grabbed life regeneration per second, incredibly important, and we got a bit of energy shield there as well, increasing. Over here, once again, we are stacking life regeneration, resistances, and max mana. Obviously, you're getting the point now. We want mana, we want life regeneration, and we want resistances. Now, gloves. Gloves are the only armor piece that cannot roll life regeneration. I don't know why, but it can roll another modifier that does help us. That is gain life per enemy killed. I managed to get a 68 life per enemy killed, which, as you can see with my 457 life, that is a big chunk of my life that is restored every time I kill something. Absolutely amazing. Make sure you grab one with life per enemy killed. On our rings, it's very much the same gist. We got the regeneration, we got the resistances, we got the mana. Same with the rings. Again, I didn't get regen on these ones. Now, when it comes to sidearm and main hand, it doesn't matter what you use in endgame. Because you're going to be in demon form the majority of the time. Doesn't matter. So, we could go in there with none of this, right? We'll just go in without any weapons, and we'll still be doing the same amount of damage as we were with them. The only benefit is that small amount of time between transformations where you get maybe a little bit more energy shield when you are, I guess, outside of that demon form. Now, the demon form doesn't give you any extra defenses, so it's not like you're more vulnerable as a human than a demon. But I guess it's nice to have something when you're in human form. That's about it for the gear. Make sure you have charms that are helping you out. Now I'm lacking in lightning resistances outside of in my demon form, so I need this at the moment because I haven't been able to max my resistances in the demon form. But I would suggest getting bleed and poison charms, because bleed and poison bypass your energy shield, as far as I'm aware. I could be wrong about the bleed. I don't think I am, but I could be wrong about the bleed, but I know 100% sure the poison does bypass your energy shield. And it is good to be able to get rid of that poison and not have it there. Right. Jeez, what a mouthful. Okay, let's get into the play style. I'm just going to chuck whatever map I have in there. Tier 5, sure, let's do it. Okay, we're back. Sorry about that. Even in recordings, things go wrong. The game started chugging and then I crashed. So, we're going to try that again. We are running a tier 6. Unfortunately, I couldn't get a hold of a tier 10 or higher because my high map tier guildmate is currently running a trial. So, all I can say is that I did run a tier 10 earlier to determine whether or not the build was ready to go public and release, and I ran it successfully. It wasn't too difficult, so let's give this another try. Hopefully we don't crash, and I can showcase this build. We won't run the entire map because this video has already gone very long, but we will give you the gist. As we enter, we want to... Oh god, it's chugging. As we enter, we want to turn into demon mode, and as you can see, our stacks are already going up. A good amount of stacks is usually around 20. You can just hang around the portal, or you can just go for it. It's really up to you. But the more stacks we have, the more damage we do. Go ahead and start spreading our fire. This build really shines in areas that are closed like this. In open area maps, the damage will fall off. You will notice that, but that's when fuselage can shine a lot more.
I will feast on your soul.
Because we really want to rely on those bouncing firebolt procs to wipe out the enemies in front of us. Now, as you can see, poison damage doesn't do too much to us because of our incredibly high regen, but that'll start causing issues when we hit a point, which will happen really soon, where our regen no longer can out-sustain our demon fire degen, which is happening right now. So round 75 for me, this will differ depending on your gear. You'll start seeing your degen hitting, and that's when things like poison can be a problem. It's pretty easy to maintain the degen to start with, but once I start getting around 100 stacks, that's when things start to get a bit iffy. So I just go ahead and keep killing things and popping a life flask when I can. Now it's getting a bit high now. I think I'm going to pull back and then we're just going to reapply our demon form. As you can see, that resets the stacks, of course resetting the G-Gen and our overall spell power. Unfortunate about the spell power, good about the stacks going, but that's how we play this build. We want to keep on stacking constantly. Okay, that's gross. D-Gen circles are gross. Even though this is a tier 6 and it's a lot easier for us, I do clear tier 10s quite easily, as I said before. I just do not have access to them. If anyone wants to donate me a bunch of high tier maps, feel free to do so. It will definitely make showing off these builds a lot easier. As honestly, my passion is to make builds and theory craft, and when I feel I've completed that, I move on to something else. Which is where the Witch Hunter went. He is currently in hiatus, waiting for a new patch or update. I can give him another go. Well, we've pretty much done this map. I may as well finish it off. I am pretty high stacked, so I kind of want to keep the stacks going. We're close to a rare, so let's go ahead and melt that rare. Boom, gone. Let's see if we can make it to the other rare before our stacks are too much for us to handle. And there's the other rare, boom, gone. As you can see, things get absolutely insane. Insane. Hey, future Shin here. I just want to clarify something really quickly before we continue on with me going bananas of how awesome this build is. The numbers you're seeing there, the DPS, is the, as far as I'm aware, B4 hit calculations. Now, as you've seen in the passive skill tree, the majority of the damage nodes we have taken are on hit multipliers. So we can expect those numbers that we're seeing here, the 69,000, nice, to be at least doubled to tripled in terms of DPS when the actual hit multipliers take into effect. I just wanted to clarify that because I know I forgot to mention that in the video, even though it was part of the passives. I just wanted to mention. That is all, back to the video. With this, you can very much tell that endgame maps won't be too much of an issue for this build. Your main issue with this build is going to be finding the gear to not only maintain your demon form, but also provide enough defenses to meet the defense requirements for the later maps. As we stand, we have just below 4k shield, which is more than enough for a tier 10 map, and because our damage ramps up, we shouldn't need to increase our damage further apart from just stacking maybe more mana in there, just because of how the build works. I'm going to end it up here. Thank you very much for watching this video. There is a very detailed description of the build in the description field, with a link to a build write-up that I took about 3 hours to write up. I'm a slow writer. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye, guys.